Investment advisory services offered through Independent Solutions Wealth Management and Blackridge Asset Management, LLC. Peak Broker Services, LLC is not an affiliate of Independent Solutions or Financial Guide, LLC.
Podcast, baby!
You're listening to The Financial Guys.
And it doesn't matter, though, with Bernie. You could say oranges, and he'd say, everybody should have oranges for free.
Billionaires!
It's going to take big money because you're going to have to fight the corrupt team of Andrew Cuomo.
Governor Cuomo coming out on Saturday during our radio show declaring a state of emergency. I'm not telling people not to panic. I'm telling people to be realistic. Do you know anything about free market capitalism at all?
They might, goddamn Donald Trump in the lunchroom, but when they walk in, are they really going to pull the lever and say, I want to give up this $100 every 2 weeks in my pocket? And the answer is, yeah, some of them will, but a big majority of them are going to go, I sort of like that $100 in my pocket.
They voted this genius, the assembly leader in New York State. Honest to God.
Here's Glenn Wiggle and Mike Lomas.
All righty, welcome back. Financial Guys Podcast. Mike Lomas, Glenn Wiggle, the place where money meets politics. We have a lot of fun with this show. We will talk markets today. Obviously, just an unprecedented almost slide. We literally 13 trading days, we've gone from a bull market, the highest ever, from a point standpoint recorded, and then 13 days later we're in bear market basically. So we're going to talk about markets, diversification, and a plan, and some of the things that we're doing to make sure we're protecting our clients, but really always setting up a plan moving forward. And the market is a leading indicator, not a backwards looking indicator, and I think that's really, really important, and we'll talk about that. And of course, we'll play some clips. Mr. Wiggles got the machine in front of him, and he likes it, so we're going to use it today. I have to remember, I've been yelled at. We have new Kelsey, and Kelsey is new to our team, but not afraid to say, look at Mike, make sure you put your coffee in the right spot, because I'm very abusive with my coffee on these podcasts. I go in the wrong spot. I've almost dumped them over. And by the way, this is tea.
I did that one day.
I've given up coffee, and I'm now drinking tea.
I did that for Lent last year, but I put a coffee cup on this right next to the the giant mixing board with all the electronics, and promptly knocked it over the one day. I'm like, next thing you know, I'm trying to sop it up. Oh man,
I'm 5 weeks into no coffee. The first two, I'm not going to lie, I was shaking literally about 70% of the day, but after 2 weeks, I seem to be starting to go on my path of being more mellow. So that's what my goal is for 2020. I just didn't start it in January, but we're good. So markets all over the place, ridiculous. I don't know where you want to start. I think here's where we start. I sent you this morning. This podcast is being recorded on Tuesday. Obviously Monday, a brutal day in the market. Tuesday morning looks like we're going to have a rebound. But what scares me about these, quote, emergencies is the Democrats who have yelled and screamed and said Trump is an emperor, he wants to be king. Andrew Cuomo wins this to expand emergency powers for the coronavirus. So the scary thing here is the legislation expanded Cuomo's powers to declare an emergency and even suspend laws, state or local laws, in their entirety with little oversight from lawmakers. What it does do is give the governor very extensive and almost unlimited affirmative legislative power to not only waive existing laws and provisions of existing laws, said the longtime Assemblyman Richard Gopher. But this is scary stuff, right? So we have a virus who literally is well, I don't know how many people may have this thing in New York. What, 20 people, right?
70, he said on Saturday.
70, okay, 70. So we got 70 people. Does he need full unlimited power? I mean, can't we just work this out and say we're going to keep them in a room for 14 days to make sure they're okay before we let them out?
Never let a crisis go to waste. That's Rahm Emanuel, right? So this is so this is the Democrats, everything that they talk about and throw against Trump and say, Trump is a dictator, Trump is going to stay in office forever, Trump is never going to leave office, and blah, 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 blah. It's all the same thing as Democrats are currently thinking and doing themselves. So everything they project onto the Republicans, whether it's the Me Too movement, whether it's Trump's a dictator, it doesn't matter what it is, they are themselves guilty of, right? And you look at, the accusations, and Trump, he is the master when it comes to the troll, right? So he puts out the video where he loves this one. I don't know who put it together, But he loves it where it's just got the years flipping off the calendar, the 2030s, 2040s, 2050s, and he's still in office, which, of course, he's 70-something years old, right?
Yeah.
He's just, and of course, it sets the liberals off every time. Like, see, we told you. And yet here we have Governor Cuomo, and of course, the liberals in New York just happily giving him whatever powers he wants.
Right.
Truly now has emperor-type powers, right? He won't use it to do things like suspend the bail reform law. No, because that's working out great. No, he'll do things like suspend, I don't know, the Second Amendment, right? They've done this, by the way. And so those that say, oh, God, come on, you're crazy, Glenn, you're nuts. Go back and look at the history of Katrina and what happened after Hurricane Katrina. The liberal-run Louisiana, run by Nader, who I think is still serving a jail sentence for fraud and embezzlement and whatnot, but the absolutely useless mayor and the National Guard and whatnot and the governor of Louisiana went around in the wake of Katrina and confiscated firearms from law-abiding citizens. That was their way of keeping people safer. Meanwhile, there was robberies and murders and rapes going on in the streets, but
the result of it was worse.
Let's take away people's rights. In fact, there's one video if you go watch where they actually storm an 80-some-year-old lady's house, knock her to the ground, and wrestle the firearm from her.
She's
a little pistol because she's a threat, right? I mean, just outrageous kind of stuff. So don't think for a second that Governor Cuomo is not capable of doing something similar if he gets the opportunity. Now he's got the power to do it.
Yeah, well, clearly he is. And anybody that's going to support and vote and push bail reform forward, know they're pretty demented and sick, right? And to me, I mean, I look at that and think, what could be wrong with your brain to say that's okay? By the way, where was that article from? There was somebody who, was it a gang but they were encouraging people to join the gang, and then they were going to ship them to New York to rob homes.
That's the Chilean. That was the Chilean group that was robbing houses. That wasn't that the same group that robbed the house in Amherst or Wheatfield or whatever?
You just sent me the article the other day, and I was I put my head down. I'm thinking they were literally recruiting people outside of the state to bring them to New York to rob homes because now there's a very high probability with the new bail reform that you won't be in jail. So you just sneak back out of the state and you hide wherever you came from, right?
We talked about a little bit of this on Saturday. Obviously, with the markets, we talk more markets. We didn't really time to get into it, but
I played hooky on Saturday, so I'm catching up. Yeah.
But the crime, I mean, the increase in repeat crime that they cited is unbelievable. I mean, it's you're talking about. I'm looking for the article now, but you're talking about something like 400 people arrested that went on to commit an additional. Here it is. I found it here. This is the statistics in this article are just staggering. I mean, they really are. Let me get this up here. There's just a bunch of great pieces in here. It's crazy.
Looking at that, right? To me, if I'm Andrew Cuomo and I find out that there's gangs in other states that are colluding to come to my state and rob because they know the bail reform. Yeah, we said, of course, anybody with a brain said it would happen. But that you'd have to be. There's something wrong with you if you don't say, okay, look at we had good intentions with this, but it's just not working out. Right. Right.
Crystal Peoples, she still doubled down on it.
Absolutely. She'll do anything. They'll do anything that Cuomo says. Right.
I've got a clip from her going. Well, this
Emperor
is.
Cuomo,
in fact, we should play the clip because it's worth playing. Yeah. Let me just read this article quick, and then I'll find her clip. Newly released statistics show a big jump in crime last month compared to a year ago. NYPD says major crimes grew 22.5% in February compared to the same month last year, including a 7.1% increase in shootings. Robbery, assault, burglary, grand larceny auto crimes all saw increases. The only positive statistic, Mike, is related to murders, which were down 20%. Only 20 people were killed in New York City in February. Great, as opposed to the 24 that I guess the previous year. Police officers blame criminal justice reforms for the uptick in crime. So does everybody else with a brain in their head.
They don't want to kill anybody anymore. They can rob your house and just move on.
Exactly.
Right?
Well, they can kill you, too. They let you out for that as well. And they say they won't, but they do. NYPD says that in the first 58 days of 2020, 482 individuals who had already been arrested for committing a felony such as robbery or burglary were re-arrested for committing an additional 846 crimes.
I don't care if
That's
you're Democrat,
incredible.
Republican, conservative, tall, short, whatever, right? You have to look at those facts.
These aren't petty larceny either.
This is ridiculous.
I'm not talking about like robbing the flat screen TV from the house. Here's what I'm talking about.
I wish somebody like a Trump would run against him because I do think he's beatable, but it's going to take somebody with big money and big stones, right? And it's going to take big money because you're going to have to fight the corrupt team of Andrew Cuomo, and they're going to do whatever they can. They're going to stalk your house out. They're going to get your history. They're going to make you look bad no matter what you do. It has to be somebody like a Donald with big money and big stones to go after him. Yeah.
So listen to this last piece. 35% or 299. Now I'm talking the first 2 months of the year here. I'm not talking about all of last year or, I'm talking for 58 days, okay? 35% or 299 were for arrest in 7 major crime categories, including murder, rape, robbery, felony assault, burglary, grand larceny, and grand larceny auto. That is nearly triple the amount of those crimes committed in the same 58 days in 2019. So officials all the suspects were arrested for offenses that prior to bail reform could have landed them in jail. In response, NYPD says it's deploying resources in real time, including moving more vehicles and foot patrols to areas that have been identified. How frustrating must it be for the NYPD, are some of the best in blue in the country, and they're out there now having to rearrest these people over and over. I mean, I got to be honest. If I'm a police officer, I quit.
Why bother?
I'm going somewhere else. I'm putting my transfer papers
Not,
in to go to Cincinnati or Cleveland or
not to mention, Glenn,
Fort Worth, whatever. Somewhere.
Now we're putting body cameras on them, not to make them safer, but to go, we got you. We got you.
Right.
See how nasty you are, right?
Crazy.
And of course, what these criminals do, they're smart enough to keep their iPhones off until so they can antagonize these police officers, get them all riled up, right?
Of course.
And then when the police officer slams them to the ground, look at this, look at how bad, look at how being abused,
Exactly.
right? It's just really
well, and you got
sad.
De Blasio is not standing up for him, which is outrageous, right? So let me find this clip real quick of not Maxine Waters, Crystal Peoples Stokes. Now it's a hyphenated name. She's a whirlwind. Here she is. So she's criticizing bail reform. This is about a month ago. So prior to the statistics coming out, but we already had a plethora of examples before this. And here's her comments regarding this. Really quite amazing. Channel 2 asking the questions.
We continue to ask state lawmakers the tough questions about New York's new cash bail law, which some argue poses a risk to public safety.
Most argue.
But Assembly Majority Leader Crystal Peoples Stokes is defending the new system, as we hear from 2 on Your Side's Jackie Roberts.
Violent criminals are not being released as a result of bill reform.
Assembly Majority Leader Crystal Peoples Stokes.
Except for that one lady who beat up like 9 Hasidic Jews, and then they arrested her on Saturday, and then she got let out on Sunday. Yeah, those aren't violent. She got let back out on Sunday. She went back out and assaulted 3 more Hasidic women. But that's not violent. That's not
the guy
violent.
that was throwing bricks through windows.
Yeah, no, that's okay.
Busting
right.
and stealing everything.
Did she not get the list I just read? Those 299 crimes were for murder, rape, right? Of aggravated assault. I mean, not for teetotaling, not for jaywalking, not for petty larceny, not for shoplifting. No. Yeah. These are for major violent crimes. That's the people they're releasing. But she's okay with it. She didn't get the memo of what actually is happening. So she goes on to double down on this. It's really amazing.
The shame of it is she's on TV, right, saying, look, as an elected
she's the
official,
assembly leader in New York, Mike.
As an elected official, she's on TV going, don't worry about it. No, this is fine. No, nothing's wrong.
They voted this genius, the assembly leader in New York State. Honest to God, if you want a definition of just downright stupid, you vote for someone like this. This is it.
Legal experts to show support for New York's new bail reform law that's been heavily criticized by a mix of voices, like victims' advocates, district attorneys, and even town supervisors.
Everybody.
Many of their concerns have to do with the lengthy list of crimes included in the new law.
Right.
I asked Peoples Stokes for her response to the criticism that the list should be relooked at.
This decision was made from legal minds. It wasn't a call of mine as a legislator. It was a call of people who understand the law and its ramifications. And so I don't think that they made any mistakes. But with any law, there's always an opportunity to amend or tweak or add value
Which they won't.
to. But
When's
we can't
that?
say that.
When are we going to
been
amend
30
and tweak
days.
that law?
But Republicans in Albany are
I mean, she's just a winner, right?
Right.
We left it to the attorneys to write the laws. Well,
legal
first of all,
minds.
half
Legal
of you
minds.
folks in the assembly are attorneys, just so you know.
Minds. Legal minds, like Hillary Clinton when she got rapist off? Yeah.
Legal minds, unreal.
That's right.
Really amazing. So anyway, that's New York. That's what's going on in New York. So Andrew Cuomo now, based on coronavirus, never let a crisis go to waste, has seized unlimited power in New York. Andrew Cuomo now can wave a magic wand.
I'm sure he'll give it back, though.
No,
I'm sure he'll get it
yeah,
back.
yeah,
After
I'm
the
sure.
coronavirus goes away.
Even some of these Democrat lawmakers were amazed at this.
Yeah.
I mean, they were like,
well,
whoa,
they voted for
wait
it, though.
Not all of them, though. Some didn't.
No.
Some said, wait a minute now, this isn't right, and rightfully so. So
they'll follow suit, though. They'll follow right in behind them. Watch and see. All these Democrats will continue to follow. They have no backbone. It's whatever Andrew wants goes. I mean, think about, look at what he's done in Western New York with this Solar City plant and the fact that now they're moving equipment out and it's basically going to be vacant. And nobody cares. Nobody cares. Oh, he's great. Andrew, the $1 billion stimulus plan. It's wonderful. Let's see if we can get another one together. I mean, it's a total joke.
Here's what Phil Steck, though, he's a assemblyman for Schenectady, Democrat, said ahead of his no vote on Monday. This just passed yesterday. I cannot, in good conscience.
He's gone.
He's gone. Yeah, he's gone.
we won't be.
No, we'll never hear from
year.
Phil again. Phil won't be running.
Phil.
I cannot, in good conscience. I cannot vote in good conscience to give the governor what, in essence, is dictatorial powers when he and the health commissioner already have sufficient power to deal with the coronavirus. A number counterpart, Senator Gustavo Rivera, Democrat in the Bronx, also voted no. Her counterpart, Assembly Health Committee Chairman, let's see, this person here, Gottfried. Okay, so Richard Gottfried. What does this give the governor? Very extensive, almost unlimited affirmative legislative power, not only to waive existing laws and provisions of existing laws, said longtime Assemblyman Richard Gottfried, Democrat Manhattan, but it also empowers him essentially to issue new legislation.
Yes.
I've never seen any governor or health commissioner ask for this kind of expansion of power, said the Assembly Health Committee Chairman.
And what, by the way, with those powers is he going to do different with the coronavirus?
But yet there's enough dumb people like Crystal Stokes in Albany to go, sure, Governor Cuomo, let me just pull the lever for whatever you want. You want unlimited powers? No problem. You want to be able to write legislation? What do we need the rest of the legislators for now?
Right.
You can write legislation. Let them just do it.
No,
he does now anyways. What's
we'll
the point? Why are we paying all these people?
We'll still pay him for a record amount of money with pensions and salaries. Yeah, total joke.
Well, now he's got unlimited powers. This coronavirus thing will be gone in about 30 days, my guess is. And we've done a number of interviews. And look, we don't have a crystal ball, right?
No.
But here's what I will say. When you look back at history and you look at how the media is fanning the flames of this crisis, I went back, Mike, and I reviewed the swine flu from 2009. There was a guy who wrote an article, and he said it was brutal. But he was in college at Ithaca. Ithaca had like 200 some odd cases back in 2009. We had 1,000 deaths from swine flu in like the first 60 days of the outbreak in this country. And yet, because Obama was president, there was no panic.
That's right.
There was no quarantines.
That's right.
There was no shutting of borders. There was no, we got to shut down, events. And, I think what they want to do is they want to.
It the best he could. He was everybody felt really good about it.
Well, people, wasn't Governor Cuomo? He was around in 2009. Was he governor at that point? I think he was, right?
Yeah.
Did he ask for the expansion of radical, expansion of powers at that point? No, of course not.
Mark my words, this is going to bite the Democrats in the butt. We're going to see a pullback in the stock market, early stages of 2020, right? Going into the summer and going into the fall, we're going to see this market rally back, and it's going to look like Trump is going to get credit for it as this economy starts to rebound out of this thing. It will bite the Democrats right in the butt, and Trump will win again. He's a winner, and he's winning. I would say, though, he came out yesterday and proposed a payroll tax cut, which I'm all for, right? We're all for tax cuts. The market's liked it. What I would say, though, is this is a criticism of the Republican Party, is that they should have been doing this kind of stuff the first 2 years in office.
Well, grow a shot.
When you look at the stimulus that the Republican Party did do, which was deregulation and corporate tax cuts, awesome, right? We're seeing a record amount of money come back to this country and companies come back to this country because of that, those two things. But the third leg in that table was giving everyday folks, a tax cut, which they didn't do. I don't care whether you do that through payroll taxes. I think you do it through payroll tax cut. I also think you lower the tax rates. Right. And when I mean lower the tax rates, I don't mean for the poor people. They're not paying taxes. Right. And we continue to, Republicans and Democrats continue to do that BS, which is let's help the poor with a tax cut. Well, they're not paying taxes. You know who you need to help? The upper middle class. That's who's paying. That's who's getting crushed in this economy. It's not the billionaires, because they're moving and shifting their income to capital gains. It's that mom and pop that owns 2 restaurants that work their butt off, and finally those 2 restaurants are paid off, and now they're actually making some income, and we're taking half of it between federal and state taxes, there is a ton of room to give those people a tax break. And those people will either invest it, they'll save it, so they're going to put it in the bank and somebody else is going to use it, or they're going to spend it, right? And there's no government filter there. And you want to talk about getting this economy growing at 3 to 4% instead of 2 to 3%. That's the way to do it. No doubt.
I think the idea with what he's doing is something that he can do by himself immediately, right?
Right.
And I think the markets received it well in the fact that the White House is willing to do something. I think just the idea and the thought that, because look, I mean, the central bank,
back. He's not going to continue to abuse us. Yeah.
Exactly. The central bank, in Europe is out of bullets, right? They have first
so
of all,
are we basically.
Well, we're not. Well, they're going to cut next week, right? So we have one more. We have one more rate cut coming, which is going to probably take us to zero. We have one more bullet to fire, right?
That's it.
And that's it. So we're going to probably take it. So I think at this point, and what they're talking about is the only thing we can do to forestall a potential recession is with fiscal stimulus, which has got to come from the governments, right? It's got to come from the form of tax cuts and things like that. When Europe had their issues, now Europe will break apart. I've been saying this since 2000. We've both been saying this since they formed
too many
the European
social
Union.
programs, right?
Way too
Socialism
many.
is great until you run out of other people's money. And they are starting to run out of other people's money, right?
Exactly.
Venezuela already did it. Italy's going to do it, and you're going to see the rest of Europe for sure.
Exactly. But I think ultimately, I don't think we're quite there yet. I think that this is. I don't think that the disruption from coronavirus to the supply chain is nearly as massive as they're hyping it, right? So, and I mentioned this on Saturday. The Starbucks CEO last week said they're already seeing an uptick and people coming back into their stores in China. So that tells me that this thing is going to last 2 weeks to a month. Definitely kill some people. Sadly, I mean, it's a virus. It's a very serious virus.
Well,
not
so
to
does
be
the
taken
regular
lightly.
flu, though, right?
So does regular flu. Right?
Yep.
And this thing is, it takes down these factories for about a month, and then they're right back to work. So, if it was killing half the population of China where they were unable to reman the factories, that would be a different story. But that's not the case. Okay, what's happening is they're shutting down these factories for 2 weeks, a month. And so, are you going to have a supply disruption? Sure you are. Is that going to have an impact on earnings? Yeah, it probably is. Is that impact going to be dramatic as they're talking about? Unlikely, right? Yeah. And so you get an opportunity for the markets to be oversold.
You'll see
here.
that V-like curve, as you pointed out. Okay, wow, the virus seems to be going away. I need to get back to work. Let's get this thing rolling. Yeah.
Bigger issue is on the oil prices, right? So I think that was a bigger cause of Monday's decline was not so much the coronavirus because that's already baked into the pricing now, but all of a sudden we have another shock to the system in the form of a trade war, oil price war between Russia and Saudi Arabia. And, this is the problem, by the way, folks. We talk, the Democrats and the socialists in general always talk about, well, we're a global economy now. We're a global economy. And listen, we are all about free trade. However, when you interlink countries together to a point that you rely upon each other, if you can't absolutely trust that other country, then you're putting yourself in a serious world of hurt if something goes awry. And you look at what's going on. China this week has threatened to withhold medicines from us, right? So that's a big problem. Now they're not going to do it because that would be crazy, but that they have something they can hold over us. So already the Republicans, and rightfully so, are saying, wait a minute now, we need to bring some of these things back to this country. And some of them are proposing legislation to force drug manufacturers to list the ingredients and how much of the product is coming from China. I would like to actually see that, to be honest with you, because I don't trust the Chinese and I don't trust what they're doing. Because let's see, they have put formaldehyde in dog food. They have put whatever in drywall, right? I mean, it's just it's just craziness. So
we'll take our medications from you,
right? Nuts.
Blindly.
So now when you look at
here's your bottle,
yeah, here you go, right? I mean, so stupid, right? So now we've got this oil price issue, and obviously we're self-sufficient now with oil, which is great. But what Russia and Saudi Arabia are basically doing is they're fighting with each other to flood the world with supply. But that hurts us, right? Because and they both know it, right? They're both thinking, well, we fight each other, but that's okay because we're going to hurt the U.S. And that's both on high on their list, even though Saudi Arabia is supposedly an ally. Yeah. But I think the thought is I talked to John Thur and Paul Meeks, when the market was down, our two CFAs to kind of get their impression. And what they're both saying is that, obviously the concern is that if oil prices get low enough and stay low enough that we'll have to lay off, certain, workers in that sector, which happens to be 17% of our economy.
That's right. Yeah. Sorry, I was going to say
okay.
It's a huge part of our economy.
Yeah.
But what I think they're not discounting is ExxonMobil's got so much money, right, and they've got so much oil, right, that they're going to be able to weather the storm, right? And
I agree.
And they're going to weather the storm. They're going to end up continuing to buy some of the smaller players and get bigger out of it. And the fact that we're not dependent on the rest of the world for oil is a big deal. Exxon will end up being a good buy out of this whole thing. And as you start to see oil prices come back, the other part of it is, we might have to lay off a few people, but hopefully that actually starts to move towards the pump, right? Which sometimes it always doesn't, right? You're seeing lower oil prices, but at some point it will, and that's going to be a huge tax cut for the American consumer if fuel prices start to go down. So I think you'll start to see this thing match itself together, if that makes sense.
So let's talk about the conditions that we have for a second to put this in perspective, because I think people get really caught up, Mike, in the today, right? Oh my God, the market's down 1,700 points yesterday, 2,000 points really is what it dropped on Monday. What are we going to do? But when I look at it and I look at the longer term, and of course we always say, I'm going to beat or sound like a dead horse here, but I always say, we are both say, it's a long term. Obviously, we hear everybody says that. Investing in the stock market should be a long term thing, and they're right. But let me put it in perspective, and we talk about maybe a year or 2 or 3 from now, which is not that long term. But let me just set the stage for a second. Right now, we have a coronavirus that is scaring the hell out of people, mainly due to the media. And I'm going to play this clip from Trish Reagan in a second. I think she's spot on with it, right? So you got this way overblown. It's just so happens that they weren't talking about, and there was not a single mention that I am aware of about the coronavirus in the major media while impeachment was going on. As soon as impeachment failed, it was, what are we going to go to next?
And they found tragedy.
They found this coronavirus. They lashed on it. And the media, you got Governor Cuomo coming out on Saturday during our radio show declaring a state of emergency because we have 76 people, right?
That's right.
He says on Saturday, I'm not telling people not to panic. I'm telling people to be realistic. We had 76 people in a state that has millions and millions of people, okay? Come on, it's like a drop in the ocean, right? Yeah. So on Monday, he walks it back, of course, says, I didn't mean to say don't panic or panic. It's ridiculousness, right? So that the coronavirus at some point, probably due to seasonal weather, is going to go away, right?
Wait till we hear the Biden clips. I can't wait to hear the Biden clips from this.
Lord.
They'll be a blast.
So you got that going away. That's going to be gone. Oil prices dislocated, as you just accurately put. In the long term, is going to be what we consider to be a tax cut to the consumer, right? That's going to be it's going to hit their pocketbook in a positive way, which the consumer is a huge part of the economy.
And ExxonMobil will weather it. And ExxonMobil's got more oil than Saudi Arabia. They're just it's unreal, and they're going to be able to weather this. So they'll hold out and say, okay, no problem. Yeah, will they lay off a few people? Yes, they will. I think you'll see that energy come out in a positive way if we can get fuel prices down.
For sure.
Right? Big tax cut. We'll be hiring in other areas. So that's going to help the airlines. It's going to help trucking. It's going to help everybody. Yep.
So that's number 2, right? So the other thing is, the oil is going to go away. It's going to be a beneficial thing for us in the long term. It's going to be a little bit of painful in the short term. Not going to have a big negative impact, in my opinion. But now let's talk about some of the positives. So now we and I think this is where nobody looks at the positives and puts it in the context when they're focused on, and the media, of course, keeps it focused on. But what do we have? What's happened in the last couple of months? Well, number 1, we passed the USMCA, which is the replacement of NAFTA. That's a huge, huge deal, and they just passed that in December. That alone is going to be adding manufacturing jobs to this country, probably enough to offset any loss in oil jobs, right? So I don't think that's a big positive not being factored in. The Fed just cut rates last week by 0.5 point, and they're going to cut them another 0.5 point down to roughly 0, right? So the Fed just basically put massive amounts of liquidity into this market, which it doesn't need, by the way, but that's another huge, huge positive. Trump's talking about tax cuts. Another huge positive, right? So you start to add up these big positives against the backdrop of the short-term negativity, and I got to tell you, it paints a really attractive long-term picture, especially when you look at what the economic numbers just were when it comes to jobs being over 100,000 more than they expected in February.
Absolutely, and add that on to the deregulation they did last year with the corporate tax cut, and we already had positive momentum going into this country, right? We started to see that money repatriate itself back into the U.S. We started to see more companies in Trump's State of the Union speech. He was talking about something like 12,000 manufacturing companies coming back here because of those tax cuts. Huge, right? Absolutely huge. So I'm telling you, and mark my words, this is going to bite the Democrats in the butt. The timing of this is wrong for them. Yeah. It's wrong. 6 months from now, the timing of it would have been perfect for them, right?
I still don't think it helps them now.
No,
I don't think it helps them. Look,
I think he overcomes that.
Everybody realizes, again, first of all, you have 40% of this country that's going to vote Democrat no matter what. Yep. They don't care. They're not listening to the media. They're not listening to anybody. They're not listening to facts. I don't understand why I can't just turn this phone off between 9 and 10 every single Tuesday morning.
I thought you were plugging it.
No.
I thought that was your board.
No, I'm sorry. It's my ringtone. Every single Tuesday morning, and I don't understand. I have it in my calendar. I'm going to put it in big bold. Don't call me even Tuesday morning when I'm recording this. Anyway, as I was saying, they're going to come up with something else and something else and something else. It's not going to matter.
No.
Look, Biden
the American
and
people
you
are
sent me
smart
this
enough
article
to know that Trump didn't cause this, right?
Right.
They
yeah. Well, 40% think Trump's the devil. Like the orange man bad. They're going to vote for the Democrat no matter who it is.
It's funny.
Amazing.
Maybe 30%, right? I think you're starting to see what you're ultimately going to see at the polls, especially if this stock market recovers, is you're going to see people at the dinner table that say, I don't like Donald Trump and what he says, but they're not going to want to give back their tax cut.
Right.
I was talking to a friend of mine who's a teacher, and she said some of the other teachers who didn't like Donald Trump, when the tax cuts went through, and of course who benefited from the tax cut was the middle class, right? And she said jokingly at the lunch table, so which one of you are going to give back that money? Because I got about $80 more in my paycheck every 2 weeks now, and I know you're in the same tier as I am, so everyone at the table got at least $80 or $100 every 2 weeks. Which one of you are going to give that back? But how many of them? And to her point was, how many of them the next go around are going to think that? They might, goddamn Donald Trump in the lunchroom, but when they walk in, are they really going to pull the lever and say, I want to give up this $100 every 2 weeks in my pocket? And the answer is, yeah, some of them will, but a big majority of them are going to go, I sort of like that $100 in my pocket.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Exactly. It's amazing, but again, there's, like you said, there's 30%, 40%. They're going to, it doesn't matter what Trump does, they're not going to vote for him. That's everybody, though, the rest of the folks with the brain in their head realize that, what Trump actually did was the right thing, and he's got those tweets on record. So if I'm Trump and this thing lingers, I'm just putting those ads out there, right? I'm putting Chuck Schumer's ad, a tweet out there in my ad where Chuck Schumer says President Trump is scaring people with coronavirus by shutting down, the borders with China and blah 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 blah. And then of course he removed the tweet because a month later, obviously the Trump administration did all the right things. But liberals who are dyed-in-the-wool liberals. And I know a couple of them, unfortunately, and I have to deal with them, but this is what it is. And I had a conversation with one of them. We were at dinner the other night, and one of my wife's friends, and we're talking, and she goes, well, what do you think Trump's going to do about Pence? I said, what are you talking about? He goes, well, he's going to have to pick a different running mate. Do you think he picks Nikki Haley? I'm like, well, I think Nikki Haley would be wonderful, but why would he ditch Pence? And they go, well, because his handling of the coronavirus has been a complete disaster. I'm like, what are you even talking about? Like
his handling of the coronavirus has been spot on.
It's been
incredible job.
Right. I mean,
had the Democrats let him actually do their job, we would have been 4 weeks ahead of the thing.
Right. Exactly. So,
yeah. No,
anyway, it doesn't matter what you do.
Pence actually has a very good I think he's got a great track record of being able to run again in 4 years after they win.
No, he definitely will. So, yeah, he absolutely will. Let me just read you. I'm going to play this Trish Reagan clip, and then I want to play this. I want to read a couple statistics here because these statistics are I read these on Saturday, and I think they help people really understand. For everyone, of course, as soon as you read the statistics, and this is exactly what the liberals will say. Oh, we've never had this. Yeah. We've never had something that's shut down entire countries before.
Well, it's like Democrat socialism.
Of course,
it's different.
This is different. Yeah, exactly. This is Trish Reagan on Fox News, just absolutely obliterating the media and the Democrats.
Hate being leveled at the president is nearing a crescendo as Democrats blame him and only him for a virus that originated halfway around the world. This is yet another attempt to impeach the president. And sadly, it seems they care very little for any of the destruction they are leaving in their wake. Losses in the stock market. All this, unfortunately, just part of the political casualties for them. This is a time to be united, not to be pointing fingers, not to be encouraging hate, and yet what do we see? We see the absolute opposite from the left tonight. Good evening, everyone. I am Trish Reagan. The hate is boiling over, many in the liberal media using, and I mean using, coronavirus in an attempt to demonize and destroy the president.
I don't think the president is capable of telling us the truth about the coronavirus.
They have no plan. They have no plan. The virus is going to kill Americans regardless of their stupidity.
This administration right now looks like they couldn't organize a one-car parade. He is not going to be able
Mind
to
you, he's run multi-billion-dollar organizations, right?
Mind you, he was 4 weeks ahead of everybody, and as to your point before, Chucky Schumer saying, he's going to scare everybody, right? So
here's the other thing that this liberal said, which is amazing. She goes, well, we only have 10,000 respirators in the country. We're going to have hundreds of thousands of people sick. I'm like, well,
hundreds.
They'll just make more.
Yeah.
She goes, well, they couldn't possibly ramp up manufacturing fast enough. I'm like, do you know anything about free market capitalism at all? Because let me tell you something. If there's demand for it, these factories that make paper clips, widgets, pens, everything, they will switch operations and they will make whatever this country needs. Did you not see what happened in World War II? If we need more masks,
they'll make them.
If anybody has the ability and understands supply chain and how to source materials for projects, wouldn't it be the multi-billionaire who has built ginormous construction projects that has to source all kinds of things and have it there on time and all this stuff?
Who actually finished projects for New York City that couldn't finish them on their own.
Exactly. Yes.
Remember
the ice
skating rink? Yep. What a joke that was, right?
For years and years and years, the liberals tried to deal with it, and he just went and did it on his own. Took him like a month.
Hundreds of millions of dollars. He came in way under budget and had it done in a month. Yeah,
that's a great. We got to pull that up and talk about that at some point because that's a great point. But let me play the rest of this clip because this is this is the montage of the media. Just he can't do this. Mind you, that Obama couldn't build a website. He couldn't build a website that could functionally take healthcare orders and quote people. I mean, you can get that from.
Did that ever work? I don't think that ever worked.
No, not really.
First
of all, it cost him $1 billion, right? Yeah. There's a website down here run by Big Lou. Big Lou Term Insurance, right? That's what he does, right? It's Big Lou. He's on meds too. I love the commercial, right? But if Big Lou can do it, Obama couldn't figure it out, but Big Lou's got it down, right?
Right.
A 12-year-old kid in his basement is just streaming on YouTube, is worth $1 gajillion, but yet the Democrats can't figure it out. But yet they point the finger at Trump, saying, "Well, he's no way he can handle this." Of course he can handle this.
Yeah.
This. In fact, if you want anybody in the White House, the last person you want is a community organizer for something like this. You want a businessman who understands how to run stuff. Yep. And you got Trump. You got the best guy in the White House to handle something like this.
Yep. And by the way, the best thing he can do to re-stimulate the economy is give us our money back, which is what he proposed on Monday night.
Exactly.
Looks like they couldn't organize a one-car parade. He is not going to be able to have his rallies, and it is going to psychologically torment him.
The president should lead, or else he should get out of the way. Stay on the golf course.
This may be Donald Trump's Katrina.
They're cheering it on. They're hoping.
Golf course. Wasn't Obama the one who was golfing every week?
There's no confidence in the president in anything he says or does. I wish he would just be quiet.
I see.
Yeah. Of course you do, Joe.
This is impeachment all over again. And like with the Mueller investigation, like with Ukraine Gate, they don't care who they hurt.
Oh, God.
Whether it be their need to create mass hysteria to encourage a
yeah.
You have stolen my dreams.
We've got to eat the babies.
So anyway, I won't play the rest of that clip. But I mean, she just goes on about and just absolutely lambastes the media. I think she's a little bit melodramatic, but I think her message is correct, though. I mean,
absolutely.
I think And so let me just read some of these stats so we can kind of close out with this. SARS. Okay, SARS was 2003 to.
Can I just set the stage for this? This was an article that you said about it was a bunch of reasons not to invest in the stock market over the last bunch of years, and this is spot on. So I didn't mean to cut you off. But
this is the whole 30 reasons not to invest over 30 years, and there's always a reason. That was from a competitor's piece.
30 reasons, 30 years. By the way, can you send that to me?
Yeah. I scanned this, so I'll send it over. This was done by a colleague of ours over at Advisors Capital. So a good company, good firm, and great folks over there. Actually, Alan Greenspan's on their investment committee. We got Paul Meeks. They got Alan Greenspan. Wow. But anyway, they did a couple good pieces there. This piece was from CNBC, and actually Jay Blanchard's marketing person, McKenna, pulled this information together. And I think it's really, really helpful to just put things in perspective, okay? SARS, which was basically just like this. Like SARS had a higher death rate, maybe not as violent as far as how fast it spreads, whatever they call that. What's the word for that, Kels? Anyway, catchy, whatever.
Well, I'll tell you this, though. SARS really, up here, catchy.
Whatever.
But SARS up here was a bigger deal because it was present in Toronto, right?
Yeah.
So the fear was that Western New York, of course, being bordered right up to the Canadian border there, the fear was, oh my God, we're not going to be able to travel. I remember I was supposed to go drag racing in Toronto and take my car up there, and I thought, oh my gosh, they're going to cancel everything because of the fear of not going back and forth over the border, and I did end up going. But it was a big deal, right? Big scare.
So some of these things, obviously nothing happens in a bubble, and I would encourage people to understand that. Like when you look at like the SARS, right? It wasn't just SARS that was going on at the time. We had a 9/11. We had a tech wreck that we're just coming off of. So you got to take the numbers with a little bit of a grain of salt. When I talk about the recovery numbers, but SARS was really from January 2003 to March of 2003. It lasted 38 trading days, and the S&P lost 12.8% over that period of time. Now, 1 month later, after it stopped, the markets were back up 8.6%, and 6 months later up 21.5%. Now, again, like with a grain of salt, because we were coming off of a 3-year bear market, where the markets were rebounding. President Bush at the time had just passed in May of that year a sweeping tax reform, including capital gains cut, that really sparked the economic growth. That was part of it.
Let me say this: also still burning off massive overvaluations.
Oh,
right?
for sure.
You're talking about companies that were trading at 1,000 times earnings. Never with the potential to earn any money. But remember, it was a new world, and we were going to price stocks differently back then.
That's right.
So a lot of burn off from that. We're not in that market environment today, right? In fact, a lot of people are saying, "Okay, look, I've been waiting for this correction to see valuations come in line, so I can start to buy again."
Right. So the next thing was, the longest one was the avian influenza, the bird flu, right? That was going to kill us all. 2004, January to August of that year. So it was the longest one. It was 141 trading days, almost half the year. The S&P throughout that 8-month period declined about 6.9%. However, and this is a better indicator because there was not a lot of other things going on. 1 month later, the S&P was still down 0.2, but 6 months later, it was back up 10.1%. The swine flu, I mentioned earlier, was probably one of the worst. It's another virus, right? Very similar to this, just not quite as violent and catchy. All these things are viruses: the common cold, the regular flu, coronavirus, SARS, swine flu. They're all viruses, right? Now, we don't have really much a way of treatment for viruses. We have antibacterial for bacterial type of infections and things like that, but we don't really have anything to fight viruses. And I was talking to a doctor the other day who also happens to be a financial planner, and I think he actually put it really well. He's like, hopefully, if anything is positive out of this, hopefully this will actually jog the medical community to get their act together to start to come up with some antiviral medicines like they've come up with antibacterial. But the swine flu... Sorry.
I think now that they know there's money involved in it, right?
Yeah. Well, they want to take away the money. Actually, it's funny because Bernie texted out or tweeted out.
That's right.
Bernie tweeted out,
everybody
they should be manufacturing this for no cost at all. These bastards at the oil or the medical pharmaceutical companies. Well, if you want to ensure no one's going to make any sort of vaccine, then don't pay them.
That's the right way. That's the right way to never have that happen. And it doesn't matter, though, with Bernie. You could say oranges, and heid say, everybody should have oranges for free.
Yeah, billionaires. They're
the only ones that have oranges.
Anyway, so the swine flu was pretty bad in 2009, and it actually there was a big outbreak in New York, way bigger than now. So the outbreak in New York, actually at Ithaca College in Cornell, it was affected a lot of people, and several people died. But again, the swine flu, 1 month after it ended in 2009, the markets were up 10.9%. 6 months later, at 40%. Again, it's 2009. Lots of other things happening, not in a vacuum. But my point is this, is that SARS lasted 38 days. MERS lasted 43 days. Ebola lasted 23 days. Zika lasted 66 days. Coronavirus right now, as of last week, we're in 23 days. So could we have another month? Sure we could. But by spring, this coronavirus is gone, and this media is hyping the next thing that's going to ruin the... They're just hoping and praying that Trump fumbles something like they claim that Bush fumbled Katrina. And, of course, we all know, those that actually look at facts, that it was the Democrat governor and the Democrat mayor that refused to call the National Guard. Remember, Mayor Nagin had all the buses lined up but never actually picked anybody up?
That's right.
The evacuation was a total disaster. They pinned it all on Bush.
Yeah.
They pinned it all on Bush, who actually did a good job. And they said, see, it's business. So they're just hoping that this is Trump's Katrina. But I don't think it is. So.
Yeah, let me just add to this. The market is a leading indicator, and I think that's so important to realize that, folks, before this is over, the market will pre-anticipate better days. And so that's why you've got to be very careful about timing this market. I don't believe there's anybody that can pick the top and pick the bottom. And that's why with our portfolios, we are extremely diversified, and we make subtle adjustments along the way to try to take advantage of it. And that could mean the stock market goes down. Maybe some of our conservative stuff is up. We might do a rebalance. We might do another rebalance if the market pulls back again. And as the market starts to move on the upside, we're going to rebalance the other way. So really, time-tested principles of asset allocation are the keys to success. And ultimately, during these times of downswings, you want to set your portfolio up, as you've pointed out, Glenn, looking back at history, to make yourself better on the other side. Let me just add one thing that this might be a little bit different. We are in the middle of climate change, Glenn, and we forgot to talk about climate change. So that's why this could be different, because the world is 0.002 degrees warmer now than it was during those other crises. So
that's right.
That might add to it.
That's going to change it.
That might add to it. But you know what? I'm as Al Gore has created the internet, I am absolutely confident that he will come up with some kind of a cure for this. So.
I'm sure he will. Absolutely. Yeah. So anyway, I will post all these articles and the clips we talked about. They're already on our Twitter feed. And if you want to find out how to follow us on Twitter, it's @FinGuys. But we're active on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and you can watch this on YouTube if you have to be listening to this on a podcast.
On YouTube.
Absolutely.
Us on YouTube, right? More conservative talk liked on YouTube, the better we're going to get that message out, right? So, and we do manage money for a living, so if you need our team, use us as a resource. Go to our website, thefinancialguys.com, and request an appointment. If you want to come in, you want to make sure your portfolio is diversified, we have some tools where we can actually look at where you're invested today, what type of risk you're taking, and we can match that up with your goals and objectives and your tolerance for risk. So use us as a resource, thefinancialguys.com. All right, anything else you want to add, Glenn? We'll wrap this thing up.
That's it. I mean, I've got a whole bunch more articles to play. We'll save them for Saturday's shows just because we have to keep something for Saturday. But I'm sure there'll be – I've got Biden clips here. I mean, one last thing. Jeffrey Gundlach nailed it this week. Biden. I love it.
He doesn't even know his own name.
He doesn't even know his boss's name. He doesn't know his wife's name. He can't tell the difference what state he's in. And I think Jeffrey Gundlach nailed it this week where he just flat out said Biden is flat out unelectable. And let's be honest. I mean, the Democrats' prospects are so bad that they have to put somebody forth that has dementia, clearly. And I feel bad for the guy, to be honest with you. I like Joe. I think Joe means well. I think he's a pedophile, but I think he's a decent, he means well, right? But I think, he's a likable kind of guy, right?
Yeah.
Kelsey's laughing here. But
he's a likable he's a pedophile, but likable
guy. Like the creepy uncle, right?
Yeah, he's just creepy. Yeah.
So anyway, he but if he's clearly showing early signs of dementia. I've got dementia in my family, right? So I've seen it firsthand. My grandmother, my aunt. I mean, you remember they're all about 3'4".
Yeah.
Remember, and Jenny. Every time you stop by, they always. It's 6:00 in the morning. Mike and I'd be going to work, and we'd have to stop by. Aunt Jenny, of course, she was up.
Pasta.
She had a full meal. It's like,
she'd say, can you guys come over and help move a piece of furniture? And at 6:30,
here's a leg of lamb. Like what?
Bread, pasta.
What time did you start making a roast turkey? Like, doesn't that take 4 hours? What time did you start? Well, I've been up since 2. But anyway. But they had dementia, and then sadly, of course, they passed away from dementia. And I'm telling you, this is the early signs, and it's sad because it would be nice if the Biden family, who clearly have made their entire living off of Uncle Joe and Dad Joe, right? His brother's now embroiled in an FBI scam. Hunter, how is he going to get around Hunter? If you're Hunter's dad, if Hunter's my kid, I tap Hunter on the shoulder and say, "Pay the damn child support, you deadbeat. I'm running for president. I've given you millions of dollars. Just pay the damn." There's already been a paternity test. They run the DNA. They know you're the father, you idiot.
As a Democrat, telling me you're going to help the poor, the middle class, and you're supporting women, you're screwing this woman.
Literally, and then screwing her again by not giving her the alimony. Anyway,
he's a dirtbag.
But wouldn't you, if you're dad, if you're Joe and you're running for president, don't you pull your son aside, slap him across the head, and say, "What the hell is the matter with you, son? What are you doing?" I mean, honest to God,
you're crushing my hopes.
You have stolen my dreams.
All right.
There you go.
On behalf of Mike Lomas, Glenn Wiggle, we're the Financial Guys, the place where money meets politics. We'll see you next week right here on the podcast.
How dare you!